Will the New South Wales government have your support with its public sector pay freeze?
They simply didn't demonstrate to us that we could trust the government.
Sorry, Robert, we just missed the top of that. Could you just start that response again? Will the government have your support?
No, they won't, Peter. We had a meeting yesterday with Mr Berejiklian discussing all of this, and we weren't convinced, our party room wasn't convinced that they would actually deal fairly with the bush, and that's really what it finally came down to. We have 3 members in the bush, we have 2 in the upper house, and we weren't convinced that creating jobs in Sydney by making these cuts would be better than allowing the public servants living in the bush to spend the money in their communities where the cash can circulate and where it's needed.
So it's not the idea itself of a freeze, it's the fact that you weren't consulted that you take issue with?
Well, it's not a matter of just consultation, but I think that's a large part of it too. The government's been, certainly in my period in Parliament, have been very arrogant in the way they've treated not just myself, the upper house, but also we've watched the rapid and then circling decline of the bush. They've been through drought, they've been through floods, they've been through fires, and now the government wants to take away support payments. It's just not something we're prepared to support.
OK, well, in the words of Margaret Thatcher, are you for turning if the government does turn around and consult you?
Well, we stand ready, and I said that last week to the Herald, actually. We stand ready to work with the government, but the government came to us with a fait accompli, with no alternatives on the table. It really is too late to deal with this. Our party room's made its decision, and we'll be moving forward on that basis. If Mr Berejiklian wants to come and talk, we, like everybody else in New South Wales, wants to see the best possible result. We want to avoid recession if we can. We know the government's in a deep hole as far as cash flow is concerned. We want to work with them to try and help them fix it.
So
they have to do it differently.
Sorry, Robert. So it is possible. So it is possible that if they did come out and talk to you about this and consult, then they could get your support. Or have you ruled that out? Have you moved on?
We've moved on from this. We're talking about the next stage. There's a lot to do with the government budget in the next 3 years. We're there to work with them if that's what they want to do.
Well, I mean, just on that, it's a big black hole that the New South Wales economy is looking at, and that's a national thing. But statewide, it's billions of dollars in debt. As the Premier said yesterday, something's got to give. That's right.
Absolutely. And we're there to work with the government, as I said. We want to see the best possible result for all of the citizens of New South Wales, and we want to see the bush fairly treated. This is not about Sydney. This government could be walking away from vanity projects like the powerhouse move, like the ANZ Stadium. There's nearly $3 billion in that alone, Peter, that they could be looking at. The people in the bush have watched this going on for the last nearly 9 years. They're not happy with it.
There's no doubt the optics are bad, when you're talking about pay freezes for people who are on the front line during this crisis. But when you couple that with the fact that more than 1 million private sector workers have lost their jobs entirely, I mean, is a pay freeze all that bad when you consider that?
Well, look, I think you've always got to look at the whole thing, but any money that's spent by government in these circumstances has got to be seen to be stimulus money. That's really what it's all about. And taking that money to the centre, as the Treasurer wants to do, I don't think that actually conforms. I think kick-starting the economy is a good thing. We'll be behind any of that. And as I said, we're there to work with the government into the next 3 years to try to minimise. Government doesn't create jobs, demand creates jobs. And that's what we want to see happen.
But isn't the ANZ and the powerhouse stimulus projects?
No, they're vanity projects. They're not going to do anything. You've already got a perfectly serviceable stadium in the ANZ Stadium. Things only been standing for 20 years. It's been revamped at least once with major spend. No one can figure out what the hell the Powerhouse Museum is all about, why that should, in theory, be moved, as they say. That's potentially $1.5 to $2 billion that could be redistributed. It doesn't need to go ahead.
So what do you want? What would you prefer? What sort of projects do you need out in the bush in the regions that, would kind of twist your arm?
Well, there are a whole lot of projects out in the bush, Peter, but the reality is the Restart New South Wales program, which we negotiated with Baird going back to 2011, 2012, hasn't itself been fulfilled. They're supposed to hypothecate, and they have done, 30% of all the privatisations to the bush, but they haven't even reached that goal of spending that money in the bush yet. The Treasurer said to us yesterday there's a lot of smaller, medium-sized projects they could get on with in the bush, and they'll do it, but they should have already done that. They shouldn't be talking about that now. That money should have already been spent in the bush. Go ahead and spend it now. But that's not new money. That's old money. That's part of the deal that we did for the bush, as I say, 7 or 8 years ago.